and we hired West Turnquist and Schmidt, who we'd worked with for many, many years, and they came in and interviewed me and actually interviewed all the people in the company and determined why we wanted to value the company, what the purpose was, what the reason for the stock plan was, and came back with, interestingly enough, a $1.4 million valuation on a company that had just done $13 million in sales. And so it was a hard thing to hear.
That seems very low.
It is low, but considering there's no liquidity available still, there's still one major shareholder. And if you just look at it from a return on investment, 1.4 is a reasonable number, as opposed to some of the public companies that at 13 million might be valued at 20, 30 million dollars. So.
Okay, well now you're down to the issue of you're going to give away 4% of the company. How do you divide it up among the employees? And Dan, I think you were on the team that helped do this.
It took, again, several iterations and lots of feedback. And one thing we have at Stellcom is a very participative management. So there was, some of it was based on tenure. There have been several of our engineers have been with the company a number of years. Some of it was based on contribution or expected contribution. And we try to take those three primary factors and put them into an equation, somewhat mechanical, and we started from there. And then we put a little bit of human touch to it, and a little fudge here and a little fudge there, and came out with something we thought was equitable. The fudge factor I think we called a bonus, but we thought we could at least put most of these factors into an equation and distribute the stock that way.
Well, you announced it to the employees. I mean, what did you do? Did you have a big meeting? Did you email it out?
Again, an iterative process. Mark initially pre-announced that he would be opening up the company to ownership, and it was going to take the form of an incentive stock option plan, and there would be more forthcoming. And I'd like to say we were really pragmatic and smart about this, but what we did is release a little bit of information such that the employee base could digest it and assimilate it, and then come back with questions. And we try to anticipate the questions next time we do an information release. So it was, I think it took about 3 announcements prior to releasing all the options. And of course it comes in the form of a contract, which has some interesting ramifications when the employees receive a contract that's 10, 15 pages long and not quite assimilating all of that, and to have my lawyer review it, what does it all mean? So it took a while. It took the course of 4 months from start to finish.
We went through that same process where it sounds good, sounds very familial, and then you hand out the package, and it's either foreign language or threatening and aggressive language if it's written by attorneys. Hopefully those in the audience will understand that's not an insult if you're an attorney. And we did have a couple of employees who felt very reticent to sign up for the stock because it was a legal relationship as well as a professional relationship. And I think that's a natural thing that you have to go through. And it also tells you about the employee's appetite for ownership, because the area of ownership includes such things as legal language and responsibility and accountability and risk. That's a very much important part of the education process.
Paul, what was your reaction to signing the documents? And
well, initially, as is always the case, when you get legal documents like this that are several pages long, you don't really understand all of the verbiage, and you have these questions and you're not sure what this or that means. But I think down the road it comes down to 2 things. One is risk and the other is trust. If you have a desire to get the benefit and to go for it, you have the willingness to take the risks, and also you have some element of trust in the company, in the CEO, in what the overall goal for the company is, you can get over those little barriers.
well, Mark, back to Stellcom. You give out the stock options. Everybody gets a different amount. I would gather some people are happy and some people aren't so happy. What was the general reaction?
The reaction ranged from anger to delight, and there was no way we could actually predict, and we did. We went round and round on this, and we role-played, and we just weren't quite sure. Some people felt they deserved more. Some people were more concerned about the number of options as opposed to the value of the options, because The company valuation was 1.4 million. We had 10 million shares. They were 14-cent options. Well, we could have made them 1.4-cent options and given them 10 times as many, and I think some people would have been happier. And so it was very difficult. The first year was the most difficult because we tried to catch up of 10 years of history and value that people have added, and I hope that the subsequent years are going to be a little bit easier.
There's many interesting perceptions and misconceptions about stock options and value. And it's based on Business Week and Fortune and all the things you read about the high-tech industry. And Microsoft, I think, is a tremendous influencer there about many people being millionaires. And we have that on a local basis here in San Diego as well. And there were just so many perceptions. It was very difficult to deal with and try to get a common sense of understanding as to the value and the quantity.
Dan, tell us about what the management team experienced. The management team at Stellcom, I believe, is 4 people, you, Mark, and 2 others.
Yes.
And so you also are deciding how much stock each of you are going to get.
Right.
And how did that process work?
Well, we do have some basis and ground rules for this, and salaries and options are confidential. And Mark made the decision as to how much the management team received. So it was not common knowledge among the management team about what the others received. But I think something we're learning to do, and the employees are learning to do, is make a business case as to how much you contribute and what your value to the corporation is. And again, that's part of this education process, is communicating to each other and to upper management what my value is and what I think I should receive in terms of options. And I'm not sure it's always a compensation conversation.
Mark, in retrospect, what would you have done differently?
I probably would have done it earlier. The fear that I had was real, but once you got over it, it was really a lot of fun. And when people were happy, it was so nice to see. And when they said this is a great thing, and they'd clap, and that's what should happen. And that's how you build a company, is you just get them all involved. And I just would have done it a little bit sooner.
Well, let's move on to open book management. Stan, could you set the stage by telling us what are the general characteristics of open book management?
Well, I'll start by probably explaining the nth degree, and then give you a caveat that says not everyone has to start at the end of the road, nor is it appropriate for everyone to start at the end of the road. And HRG, I think, is at the end of the road because we were lucky enough to be able to start this program before we had a tremendous number of employees and all that much history. And we do share all of our salaries and who has what stock options, and every aspect of the business financials are available and in fact distributed proactively to employees, and we use them as a basis of our monthly meetings on the subject of how the business is doing. And we found that to work very well for us. It's not without its problems, however. It still makes for sensitive and sometimes uncomfortable discussions, oftentimes in group, and very seldom in one-on-one discussions about how we're spending our money. And we find that, in my opinion, I think Paul should talk as well on that subject, my opinion is that those types of conflicts or tense moments are going to occur no matter what. And you have a choice as to whether to get them up on the table and taken care of, or they'll simmer and grow over time, even though you may not see the symptoms of that tension for some period. But with us, we put everything on the table.
Paul, could you talk about how you feel as an associate at HRG, or talk about some of the tensions that have existed?
Sure. I think there are a certain level of tensions just because everything is up on the table and there is no element of privacy. If people really want to have a lot of privacy and they don't want to have responsibility to help make decisions, this is a dangerous road for them. I personally am excited about the opportunity to be involved in making the decisions, and therefore I'm willing to risk having some privacy out there, or willing to risk some of the tensions. For example, when we were bringing in a new associate just a few weeks back, we had a discussion to determine the salary that we wanted to bring this person in. And this person sort of fits somewhere in the middle of our current group. So here you have